So no matter how many times I do videos on Richard Wolff, no matter how many times I talk about his labor theory of value and his Marxist nonsense, his zero-sum view of economics, he still shows up and people demand that I do a video on him. Like this new video from Grovel Institutes put out on January 22nd by Richard Wolff, How Capitalism Exploits You. Let's check this out.
Right now, as you're listening to this, you are being robbed.
You are being robbed, folks. You're being robbed right now. Look out, everyone.
A chunk of everything your hard work creates is being stolen from you, and it's a sister called capitalism that's robbing you. Every day when you check into work for your boss, you are being taken advantage of and stolen from. You are being deprived of the full value of what you contribute. Let me break it down. A capitalist isn't someone in a top hat burning library books to run a misery factory. Anyone who puts forward capital, money, to set workers in motion becomes, thereby, a capitalist. That is to...
No, he's not entirely wrong. I would say a capitalist is someone who diverts capital in hopes of earning a greater return, which is a totally legitimate profession. It's often demonized, especially by major religions. It's a usury. Money lending in pursuit of a profit is considered a sin in some major religions. And people don't like it. Especially, I remember during the 2008 financial crisis, you know, whenever you read about like all these evictions, all these sob stories. I think Michael Moore talked about this in Capitalism, a Love Story. He was talking about, like, look, the people who are getting kicked out of their homes, a lot of these people have already paid back the principal and then some. You know, why are these greedy banks trying to take more of their money? You hear this with the student loan crisis and that controversy. A lot of students, they end up paying 4 or 5 times as much as they borrowed out. Is that right? Of course, a lot of the student loan issue is bad because government's involved, which creates a lot of problems, a lot of distortions. That's a whole other topic, though. But he's right. Yeah, when capitalists divert money, it is to productive efforts. And a lot of times it does go to fund people who start doing work.
To say they're acting as a capitalist. And what's their goal? People will tell you it's innovation or competition, but down the real world, it's pretty simple. Capitalists have one goal, and that goal is to turn a profit.
Hell yeah.
Pursuing profits to accumulate money is just how capitalism works. That's the nature of the beast.
Now, again, I would define capitalism as a society that recognizes the individual's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property and happiness, where government only protects the rights to pursue happiness, to live life, freedom from coercion, and everyone should be looking out for their self-interest. And most people, while most people won't be professional capitalists, I think in a free market, people ought to invest some of their money into things like savings accounts, retirement accounts, in which that money would probably get diverted. So I think, yeah, in a free market, you'd have a lot of people in, diverting capital for productive purposes.
It's the single impulse of capitalism. That doesn't make capitalists personally greedy, though some might be. We're not even talking about good or evil here.
Oh, we're not talking about good or evil. This guy's only talking about how profits are theft and exploitation. Nothing about good or evil, though.
Capitalists need to maximize profit to the exclusion of all other considerations, or they'll get eaten up by capitalists who are smarter or more ruthless than them.
And not always. You know, in a lot of markets, a lot of industries, you can have multiple competitors making profits and succeeding in their own endeavors. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to bankrupt your competition, like in Monopoly, which is a board game based on a zero-sum view of the world.
That's the jungle law of the market. So capitalists need profit to survive. But where does this profit come from? And that's where you come in. Literally, profit comes from you.
Profit comes from you. I would say that it ultimately comes from the mind, mental productive effort. It's been said that aside from altruism, that the real reason why people hate capitalists, banks, financiers, and investors is because they are ultimately in the profession of thinking long term. It is the business of putting money to productive use.
Here's a little thought experiment. Meet Harold. Harold has a chain of buildings full of kitchens full of ingredients, but Harold doesn't know how to make a burger himself.
And where did Harold get all these ingredients and kitchens from? They just pop out of nowhere?
How does Harold get someone to make enough burgers that he can sell them and turn a profit? It's not a trick question. He pays you because you know how to make really good burgers. The money he uses to pay you is what we call capital. That's money used to set production into motion. Let's say
Yes, capital does set production into motion, and a lot of businesses and startups, people need money up front if they're going to be compensating people to do work that they can sell at a profit.
Harold spent $1,000 buying all the ingredients in the restaurant. And after you worked for a few weeks there, turning the ingredients into burgers, they brought in $3,000. Not bad. You added $2,000 worth of value to the ingredients. But wait, you don't get all the money because Harold now has $3,000 on his hands. $1,000 of that is just making up for the cost of the ingredients. And if you were paid for the full value of your labor, you'd be making $2,000. But then Harold would only be breaking even on the burgers, and he needs to make a profit in order to survive. So Harold does not pay you for the full.
Now, this is true. When you go to work for a business or an employer, they are ultimately going to be profiting off of the work that you provide them. Of course, this drops a ton of context, but I think we should use a real-life concrete example. Let's talk about Avengers Endgame. According to the story from April 26th of last year, 2020, Avengers Endgame made about $890 million in profit. And anyone that's watched the Marvel movies, I'm sure some of you guys have watched Avengers Endgame, or at least some of the Marvel movies. At the end of the movie, there's just a ton of credits. It's just ongoing. And a lot of people do watch the credits because Marvel's known for having these mid-credit, post-credit scenes, although I'm not sure Avengers Endgame did. But you know, there's just non-stop credits. It's like the Vietnam War Memorial times 1,000. Just name after name on a black background. So in order to make Avengers Endgame, Disney, Marvel Studios, they have to hire a lot of people. They have to hire camera operators. They have to hire sound crews, lighting crews, set designers, makeup artists, editors, directors, producers, assistant editors, special effects people. You get the picture. So in order to make Avengers Endgame, Disney, Marvel Studios, they might hire out some makeup artists, and they're giving them money to do makeup. They're giving them money for the task of turning someone like Zoe Saldana, who played Gamora, they are turning her skin green to play the part of Gamora. They are hiring camera operators to show up and film Tony Stark fighting Thanos in front of a green screen background, and so on and so on. And they're taking all these little pieces, all these little products and services, the makeup artists, and at the end of the day, they're combining it all together to make a movie that they're going to sell for $900 million. Now, would you say this is theft? Because Richard Wolff is going to say that this is essentially theft. Disney, Marvel Studios, they stole $900 million from everyone who worked on this movie.
Nigga, get the fuck out of here.
But bringing it back to fast food production, Richard Wolff takes for granted all of the startup costs and figuring it out it takes to maximize efficiency. This is why I asked, where did Harold get all the kitchens and the tools?
You know, that's a really good question.
The employee does not have to supply the land. They don't have to build the kitchen. They don't have to provide the utensils like the spatulas, the forks. They don't have to provide the ovens and the deep fryers. They don't have to pay for the utilities. They don't have to worry about marketing or whatever insurance policies are required. They don't have to figure out, again, how to maximize efficiency, which when it comes to places like McDonald's, Jimmy John's, it takes a lot of figuring out, a lot of trial and error. All they have to do, they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All they have to do is come in, and they're paid to perform a few simple tasks that will eventually help the business make a profit. That's not stealing. That's you and your employer trading money for labor, both of you hoping for a win-win. And you could even break this down to wholesale pricing and retail pricing. Say you buy a carton of eggs from the grocery store. The grocery store probably bought that carton of eggs from an egg farmer and they sold it to you at a higher price to make a profit. So, who got stolen from in this transaction or in this line of transactions? Or take it a step further. Say you take the carton of eggs that you bought from the grocery store who bought it from an egg farmer. You take this carton of eggs and you use it in a recipe to make brownies, and you go sell those brownies for a large profit at a bake sale. Would it be right for the egg farmer in the grocery store to come up to you, waltz on up to you all like, "Whoa, bunny, you ripped me off. You took my eggs and you made it into a profitable endeavor. This is theft." If an egg farmer or a grocery store manager or both, if they try to pull this, any rational person would respond by saying, "Look, you provided me with the eggs, you sold them to me at a price that you found reasonable, and what I do with my eggs after that is none of your fucking business. So get bent, you envious loser."
Value of your labor. Maybe he pays you just 1,000 of the value you produced. Maybe he pays you 1,500. No matter what, you've been stolen from. You spent more of your...
No, you agreed to perform a variety of tasks in exchange for a certain amount of money.
labor than you were compensated for. But here's the dirty truth. The story doesn't end...
So again, if you buy a carton of eggs, make them into brownies, and sell them for a profit, you stole from whoever sold you the eggs. It's the same line of thinking.
...with you and Harold. This process plays out across your city or town, your state, the country, the entire world. The rich get richer, and the little guy barely gets by.
Well, everyone gets richer under capitalism. Dick.
We call the process, a boss is stealing from you, exploitation. We don't mean that in an emotional sense about how we feel about it, but something that's actually a documented economic phenomenon. The gap between how much the worker produces and how much they get paid. Exploitation is a universal feature of capitalist...
By the way, is there any economic system, because he says, oh, this is an exclusive feature to capitalism. Is there any economic system where there's zero exploitation? The other day, I used Postmates, the app Postmates, to exploit someone by giving them money to bring me food. Oh no, you guys, the horror.
Economies, and it never ends. The system requires more and more exploitation, paying workers less, making them work more, or making them more productive without increasing their wages. When you see in the newspaper that a corporation's recording record profits, that is what they are doing. Your hard work is producing more value.
If you ever read about a corporation making record profits, here's a thought. Buy some stock in that company and make some money.
But you're not getting enough compensation in return. There are tens of thousands of Harolds out there, but billions of people just like you. You and Harold are two different types of people. You belong to two different classes. There's a capitalist who owns a means to produce goods and services, and there's the workers who only have their own labor to survive on. The capitalists appropriate the value.
So you hear that, folks? You're just part of an economic class. You're either the exploiter or the exploited under capitalism. Richard makes it sound like that you're either part of that if you're part of the lower class, which is a completely arbitrary grouping of people, that you're just destined to stay there forever, working whatever miserable job that your employer offers you to exploit you for your labor. Of course, we know that even someone like Jeff Bezos, Boss Bezos, who richest person in the world, runs the most successful company. Well, he was once flipping burgers. He was a short order line cook for the breakfast shift at McDonald's. And now he's one of the capitalists, one of the large employers that's apparently exploiting all of his workers. And I've brought this up before in multiple videos, like Andrew Carnegie, guys like Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, J.D. Rockefeller, James J. Hill, and many others all started out poor, started out as part of the working class, and became some of the biggest employers in the world and in history. Sorry if I repeat myself, but I feel like I gotta mention this for people who might be seeing me for the first time.
That the workers' labor creates and keep it for themselves. And you are not immune from it. At any job you work at, the condition of your employment is that you produce more by your labor than you get paid. So in the capitalist system, no one is paid what they're worth. All profit is value extraction, and that means that all profit is theft from you.
All profit is theft. Not only is this wrong, but it's pretty rich coming from an avowed Marxist who presumably wants to establish a society around theft with taxation and the abolition of property. Here we go. Private property. This is the Communist Manifesto. Abolition of property and land and application of all rents of land to public purposes. A heavy progressive graduated income tax. Abolish of all inheritance, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. And this guy is complaining about theft. Pretty rich.
Human beings do not need that much wealth. They just don't. So the correct response, since billionaires are doing so well, is to take that money from them. Take that money from them. Take that money from them. Take
that money from them.
Redistribute their wealth that they don't need and give it to people who need it.
But bringing this all back to my example about Avengers Endgame and the fact that Disney gave a bunch of money to people in exchange for products and services that enabled them to make a movie for a $900 million profit, is that theft? What if Endgame turned out to be a flop, which many movies do? Imagine Endgame being a loss, millions of dollars worth of loss. Would Richard Wolff then argue that the workers stole from Disney? Would all the film crews and camera operators, makeup artists, editors, stage designers, would they not be guilty of stealing and obligated to give that money back?
No, of course not.
What more proof do you need that the Grovel Institute is left-wing garbage? Shit, I just spilled my orange soda. And now I scared my cat away, and I'm cleaning it up with my Tim Pool beanie that just happened to be here. Holy crap. Hope I didn't ruin my mouse. Good thing I ended that video right there. I think the establishment has gone too far, you guys. I think we're about to have a civil war. I think Kel Mitchell from Kenan and Kel just had a heart attack. He's like Yoda when Yoda feels a disturbance in the Force. Like, that's how Kel Mitchell from Kenan and Kel feels whenever someone spills an orange soda. He just goes, oh.